Did Tony and Ziva just reclaim their throne in NCIS Season 24? Pure romance. For more than a decade, Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David have remained one of television's most unforgettable couples. Their story was never built on instant declarations of love or fairy tale moments. Instead, it was crafted through stolen glances, playful teasing, impossible missions, heartbreaking sacrifices, and a bond that survived years of separation. That slow-burning romance transformed Tiva into a phenomenon, and now, with Tony's return to NCIS Season 24 officially confirmed, fans are once again asking the same question. Have Tony and Ziva finally reclaimed their throne as the greatest couple in the NCIS universe? Season 24 arrives carrying enormous emotional expectations. After the events of the NCIS Tony and Ziva series, audiences watched the pair fight not only dangerous enemies, but also the emotional scars left by years apart. Their journey became less about whether they loved each other and more about whether they could truly build a peaceful future together. Although the spin-off ended after one season, Michael Weatherly has said that its events will remain part of the character's ongoing story rather than being erased. That decision matters because Tony and Ziva have always represented something different from other television romances. Their relationship was earned. Every smile carried years of history. Every joke reminded viewers that these two people knew each other better than anyone else. Imagine Season 24 opening with Tony walking back into NCIS headquarters. The familiar bullpen suddenly feels alive again. McGee cannot hide his grin. Palmer welcomes his old friend with genuine warmth. Even the newer agents quickly recognize that this isn't just another returning agent. This is someone who helped define the agency itself. Then comes the moment every fan dreams about. The elevator doors slide open. Standing there is Ziva. No dramatic speeches, no explosions, no villains interrupting the reunion. Tony simply looks at her. She smiles. He crosses the room without saying a word before wrapping her in the kind of embrace that makes years of pain disappear. Sometimes silence speaks louder than dialogue ever could. That has always been Tony and Ziva's greatest strength. Their romance never needed endless declarations. Instead, it thrived through trust. Whether facing terrorists, protecting innocent lives, or raising their daughter Tali, they continually chose each other. Season 24 has the opportunity to explore something fans have waited years to witness. Not the excitement of two agents falling in love, but the quiet beauty of two people finally living that love every single day. Imagine Tony preparing breakfast while Ziva laughs at his terrible attempts to cook. Imagine Tali rolling her eyes as her parents tease each other across the kitchen. Imagine the family enjoying a peaceful morning without a mission threatening to tear them apart. Those ordinary moments may sound simple, but for Tony and Ziva, they would represent the greatest victory of all. Of course, this is still NCIS. Danger always finds its heroes. Perhaps an international investigation forces Tony back into active duty. Maybe Ziva insists on helping despite promising herself she was finished with field work. As always, they become the perfect team. Tony still relies on instinct. Ziva still notices details everyone else misses. Together, they move with effortless chemistry that no amount of time can erase. But this time, something has changed. They no longer fight to discover whether they belong together. They already know the answer. Every mission is simply another reminder of the life waiting for them when the case is over. That emotional certainty transforms their partnership into something even stronger than before. Fans have always admired Tony for making Ziva laugh when darkness surrounded her. Likewise, Ziva always challenged Tony to become a better man. Together, they balanced humor and heartbreak in ways few television couples ever achieved. Season 24 could celebrate that growth rather than repeating old misunderstandings. Instead of endless relationship drama, viewers deserve to watch two mature people protecting both their family and each other. One unforgettable scene could feature Tony sitting beside Ziva after a difficult mission. Neither of them says much. He simply reaches for her hand. She squeezes it gently. The silence feels peaceful instead of uncertain. After everything they've survived, words are no longer necessary. Their love speaks for itself. That emotional maturity is precisely why many fans still consider Tony and Ziva the heart of the franchise. While new characters continue bringing fresh energy to NCIS, Tony and Ziva represent its emotional history. They remind audiences why they first fell in love with the series. Loyalty, family, sacrifice, hope. Those themes have always defined NCIS, and no relationship embodies them better. With Michael Weatherly confirmed to return for a major season 24 arc, speculation naturally continues about how much of Tony and Ziva's shared story will unfold on screen. While CBS has confirmed Tony's return, Ziva's involvement has not been officially announced, leaving fans hopeful for surprises. If Ziva does appear, even briefly, it could become one of the most memorable moments in recent NCIS history, not because of explosions, not because of shocking twists, but because viewers would finally witness two beloved characters standing together, not as tragic lovers separated by fate, but as partners who overcame every impossible obstacle. That is the ending fans have waited years to see. Perhaps Tony and Ziva don't need to reclaim their throne. Maybe they never truly lost it. Long after countless television romances have faded from memory, Tiva continues inspiring passionate conversations across generations of viewers. Their love story proved that patience can be rewarding, that trust can survive impossible odds, that real romance is built through friendship as much as passion. Whether season 24 delivers quiet domestic moments, thrilling investigations, or emotional reunions, one truth remains unchanged. Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David are more than legendary agents. They are one of television's most enduring love stories. And if fate allows them one more chapter together, it won't simply be another reunion. It will feel like two soulmates finally coming home. Did Tony and Ziva just reclaim their throne in NCIS Season 24? Pure romance. Part 2. The night after their reunion, the excitement inside NCIS headquarters slowly faded. The bullpen grew quiet, agents returned home, and another long day officially came to an end. But for Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David, something far more important than another successful case was about to begin. For the first time in years, there were no secrets between them. No fake deaths, no impossible goodbyes, no oceans separating them. Just two people who had spent years finding their way back to each other. As the lights of Washington, D.C. shimmered outside their hotel window, Tony leaned against the balcony railing with 2 cups of coffee. He smiled as Ziva stepped outside, wrapping a light jacket around her shoulders. "You still drink coffee this late?" she teased. Tony shrugged with the familiar grin that had once driven her crazy. "I've matured," she laughed. "No, you have simply become older." Tony placed a dramatic hand over his heart. "That hurts, David." The nickname instantly transported them back to the earliest days of their partnership. For a moment, they weren't thinking about international missions or dangerous criminals. They were simply Tony and Ziva again. She accepted the coffee and stood beside him. The silence between them felt comfortable. Years ago, silence had been filled with questions neither dared ask. Now it carried peace. "I missed this," Tony admitted quietly. Ziva looked toward the city lights. "So did I." Tony hesitated before speaking again. "You know, I used to imagine this every night." "This?" "Standing next to you without worrying that tomorrow one of us would disappear again." Ziva reached for his hand. "You do not have to imagine anymore." Tony smiled. "I know." Inside the room, Tali was already asleep after an exciting day with her parents. Watching their daughter rest peacefully reminded Tony of everything they had fought to protect. Their greatest adventure was no longer chasing fugitives, it was building a family. The following morning, Director Vance requested a meeting with both of them. A new international investigation required experienced agents who understood each other's instincts better than anyone else. Tony exchanged a quick glance with Ziva. He could already predict her answer. "You want to say yes," he whispered. She smiled. "You already know me. I always will." Vance noticed the exchange and chuckled. "I suppose some things never change." "They shouldn't," Tony replied. Over the next several days, Tony and Ziva worked side by side once again. Watching them in action reminded everyone why they had become one of NCIS's most legendary partnerships. Tony distracted suspects with effortless charm. Ziva quietly observed every movement in the room. Together, they solved problems before anyone else even realized they existed. McGee couldn't help smiling. "They're still perfectly synchronized." Palmer nodded. "It's like they never left." Even the newer agents found themselves watching in admiration. Stories about Tony and Ziva had circulated around headquarters for years, but witnessing their chemistry firsthand was something entirely different. It wasn't just professional, it was instinctive. One glance, one nod, one smile, each knew exactly what the other was thinking. Later that evening, after another successful operation, Tony surprised Ziva with a quiet dinner overlooking the Potomac River. No expensive gifts, no elaborate speeches, just good food, soft music, and uninterrupted time together. "I have something to ask you," Tony said. Ziva raised an eyebrow. "You sound nervous." "I am." She smiled warmly. "I have faced terrorists with you. I think I can survive one question." Tony laughed before becoming serious. "What if this is finally our chance?" "Our chance for what?" "A normal life." The words lingered between them. Normal. It sounded almost impossible after everything they had experienced, yet somehow it no longer felt out of reach. Ziva looked into Tony's eyes. "I spent years believing we would never have that. And now? Now I believe we deserve it." Tony reached across the table and gently took her hand. No cameras, no witnesses, no dramatic interruptions. Just a quiet promise shared between two people who had finally stopped running from happiness. Whatever challenges awaited them in season 24, one thing had become clear. They would face every danger together, not because duty demanded it, but because love had already made the decision for them. For Tony and Ziva, the greatest mission was no longer saving the world. It was protecting the life they had fought so hard to build. And perhaps that was the true reason fans never stopped believing in them. Not because their story was perfect, but because it proved that even after years of heartbreak, hope could still win. This story is a fan-created work of fiction inspired by the characters from NCIS. It imagines a romantic continuation and is not an official episode or spoiler for season 24. Did Tony and Ziva just reclaim their throne in NCIS season 24? Pure romance? Part 3. The next morning began with an unusual calm. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the safe house where Tony, Ziva, and Tali had spent the night after wrapping up their latest case. For once, there were no emergency phone calls, no alarms, and no urgent messages from headquarters. Tony was already in the kitchen, determined to prove he could make breakfast without setting off the smoke detector. "I've got this," he announced confidently. From the dining table, Ziva folded her arms with a knowing smile. "That is exactly what you said the last time. And? You burned toast?" "It was artisan toast." Tali burst into laughter. "You two argue about breakfast every time." Tony pointed a spatula toward his daughter. "That's called tradition." For a few precious minutes, the world outside simply disappeared. They weren't legendary NCIS agents or international operatives. They were just a family enjoying an ordinary morning. It was exactly the kind of life Tony had dreamed about for years. Later that afternoon, the piece ended when Director Vance called. An encrypted message from an old enemy had surfaced, hinting that someone connected to one of Ziva's past missions was active again. Tony looked at the screen, then at Ziva. We don't have to do this. She met his eyes. I know. And if you say no, I'll support that. Ziva reached for his hand. But if we walk away now, someone else could get hurt. Tony smiled softly. Then we finish it. Together. Hours later, they arrived at NCIS headquarters. McGee welcomed them with a grin. I was wondering how long it would take before you two got dragged into another case. Tony shrugged. Apparently, retirement and I aren't compatible. The investigation moved quickly. Following a trail of coded messages, Tony and Ziva uncovered a network that had been operating in the shadows for years. As always, their instincts complemented each other perfectly. When Tony rushed ahead, Ziva kept him grounded. When Ziva became too focused on the mission, Tony reminded her what they were fighting for. Each made the other stronger. During a late-night stakeout, they found themselves alone once again. The city lights reflected across the river as they waited for their suspect to appear. Tony broke the silence. Do you ever think about Paris? Ziva smiled without looking at him. Every day. I still remember dancing with you. You stepped on my foot. I was overwhelmed. You were clumsy. Tony laughed. I was in love. This time Ziva didn't tease him. Instead, she leaned her head gently against his shoulder. I know. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Sometimes, after everything they had survived, silence was enough. The suspect finally appeared, leading to a tense but successful operation. Working alongside the NCIS team, Tony and Ziva prevented a dangerous attack and safely brought everyone home. Back at headquarters, applause filled the bullpen. Even the newest agents recognized they had witnessed something special, not just an exceptional partnership, a legendary one. As everyone celebrated, McGee quietly approached Tony. You know, he said, it's good having you back. Tony smiled. It's good to be back. McGee glanced across the room where Ziva was talking with Vance. You look happy. Tony followed his gaze. I finally figured out something. What's that? I spent years chasing adventures. And now? Tony smiled as Ziva looked over at him and returned the smile. I already found the greatest adventure. That evening, the family returned home. Tali fell asleep on the couch after watching a movie, and Tony carefully carried her upstairs. When he returned, he found Ziva standing on the porch beneath a sky full of stars. He wrapped an arm around her. No missions tonight. No. No danger. No. Just us. Ziva rested her head against his shoulder. Just us. They stood there together, saying nothing as the cool evening breeze drifted through the trees. For the first time in a very long time, neither of them wondered what tomorrow might take away. Instead, they looked forward to what tomorrow might bring. Because after years of heartbreak, sacrifice, and impossible odds, Tony DiNozzo and Ziva David had discovered the one thing that had always been worth fighting for: each other. This is a fan fiction continuation inspired by the characters of NCIS. It is an original romantic story and is not an official episode, script, or confirmed Season 24 storyline.